right. All right, y'all. So we have this is the second to last episode of the season.
Yes, it
And
is.
we are going to revisit a conversation that I had last season. It was actually a three-parter, season 2, 5, 6, and episode 5, 6, and 7. And I had conversations about kink with my homegirl, Sunny D, and the erogenous coach, Dr. Lavon Shaw. And today, myself and Stefan are going to talk about kink.
Yes, it is.
So I will link those episodes in the description if you guys want to revisit those. Let's break the ice a little bit, and I want to know, how do you define kink? Hola, everybody. This is LuzCelenia.
Hey, what's up? This is Steph coming at you live,
and this is Sex and Sensuality for the Churchy podcast.
Kink, man, it's the place of exploration unknown. I mean, it's honestly, for me, I think it's really being able to be truly in tune with your desires and pushing the envelope in a way that allows you to connect with your partner, but in a very non-traditional way, right? Like let's do some things that are gonna make things way more interesting than it would have been under normal circumstances for the night. I think there's exploration. I think there's and of course there's, for some, pain involved, for some pleasure, both. Like it's just a wide gamut of possibilities, and I think that's really, for me, that what it comes down to. Kink has such a wide gamut, and depending on who you are, you get to come as you are with what works for you, which is also kind of cool, right? It's not like I have to be a certain way for it to work for me. Right. So yeah.
I think a few years ago, I would have immediately went to BDSM and equating BDSM to kink. Now I, would be more like what you said. It's really anything that is taboo.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I looked it up. Wikipedia has it in human sexuality. I love that they made sure that in human sexuality, kinkiness is the use of non-conventional sexual practices, concepts, or fantasies. And then they go on to talk about, anything outside of anything that is vanilla. And what I consider vanilla is pretty much missionary, straight, heterosexual sex. So anything outside, but then I think vanilla also
can apply to.
So, that I think that vanilla is very broad, but I think for each and every relationship, couple, throuple, whatever, they might consider just giving head vanilla. Somebody else might be like, oh no, that is absolutely too much. So it's definitely more of a broad definition and able to be defined by the people that are consenting and engaging in the sexual practices.
Keyword, consent.
Right. Very, very key. What, if anything, would be one of your, if you wanted to know anything about kink that you maybe don't know, what would be a question that you would ask if we had a kink sexpert on here? What would you want to know about kink?
Leather or pleather? I think it would be in my mind, I have my own fantasies and so forth, right? And I think it would be how to incorporate your partner into those fantasies, right? Because I think in my own mind, I'm like, they're like, those are way out there. And it may not even be the case, but how do I bring someone into a world? Because it's very personal. I feel like kink really brings out a very personal side of you that you may not necessarily just share with, the average person that you're with in a relationship and so forth. So it's actually, let me even go back before that. Learning to get past whatever stigmas that I have of my own desires, right, that I would consider kink, and working through that before I can then bring someone else into saying, hey, let's try this, let's try that. But yet I haven't gotten over the fact of like, well, is there a certain level of shame that I may have because of what I'm interested in? You know what I mean? So I think that would be a interesting place to start.
And it's interesting because I'm like, and I didn't even consider it until you just said what you said. I wonder how much maybe labeling stuff as kink can also be a deterrent for some people. Because it's like,
but it's
because it kind of, because of, and maybe for some people, the stigma attached to it makes it like, oh, I don't know if I could share that. That's too much. And like you said, it may not be, but
well,
um,
it's like the chicken or the egg, right? So you still have to label things as they are, right? Because it helps to provide context. So if I start calling something kink something else, but yet I still have those same feelings, I still want to make sure that I'm still addressing those same feelings, right? Because they don't go away, whether I call it kink or vanilla or
mhm.
nothing, right? But I think kink is still good to use because there's an extra spice to it, you know, and I don't want to lose that spice, you know, when we're talking about it. What about you?
So um
That
I
just threw you off.
honestly, like, I'm at the place where if I have questions, it's about like actually doing it. Like,
Oh, well, yeah,
you know,
we're
how do I
there.
get into it? What does this mean? Um, how do
What's the best store to go to?
I like, how do I, where are the good places to explore these newfound kinks that I think I have or that I know that I have?
That's another one too. Like, where do you go to feel safe to be able to like be able to build a community, right? That's another thing too. Like, because again, I think it's easy to always think of communities within like sports and my interest, but like kink is an interest. This is for many people lifestyle. So it's like, where are those communities that I can just go to and
Right. Well,
learn?
and it's funny because those two of those questions, like your question and my question, is actually two of the most common questions about kink. The
Oh,
others are, can you be into BDSM if you don't like pain? And in short, absolutely, you don't have to engage in
yeah.
pain, in
Nope.
impact play or anything like that. Um, Another one was, how does someone hurt the people that they love when in talking about pain? But again, one, you don't have to do things that cause you pain. But I love their answer. This is coming from Sade, which is not the singer. It is
that would make things
the
interesting.
School of Advanced Dynamic Education.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's old school. You can actually go and get Dr. Lavon Shaw is a certified dominatrix. She went to one of these schools to become a certified dominatrix, so that she could, one, educate her community and provide a space for people to come and learn and engage in this stuff in a safe way, whether couples are married or not. But their answer was like, imagine with us for a moment. Going to the gym sucks, doesn't it? You're in the middle of the workout and you're aching all over. However, when you finish, you feel great. You're really happy that you got yourself to go through it. You feel fulfilled, healthier, blah, et cetera, et cetera. Impact play, which is what is called in the kink community when you're talking about pain, is very much the same for a lot of people. You're hurting your partner, you're not harming them.
Mhm.
Everything you do and experience in BDSM, or at least should be, is totally consensual. So you can relish in the fact that your partner wants this. You both explore the safety aspects of it, and you both communicated boundaries and safe words. Now it can be hard to top, which is the person who's actually inflicting the pain in an impact scene. And so the boundaries that should be discussed aren't just for the person receiving, which is the thing that I love about kink. In whatever way persons decide to engage in it, is the
Mhm.
fact that if you're doing kink right, then before you actually do anything, there are negotiations in the sense of, what do you want, what is off the table, what are not just the safe word for you to stop, but safe words that are like, we're getting close to my max.
Mhm.
And what is aftercare like for both the person receiving and the person giving?
Yeah,
What do
because
you
stuff has
need?
happened.
Right. What do you need to recover from a scene? And it doesn't have to be about sex per se. Intercourse is not a given. there are plenty of people who engage in kink who don't have sex with these people at all.
Mm-hmm. Which is also the part that I think is so amazing about it, because of the fact that it's not just so restricted to just that one element, right? That, and I think that's part of what we always talk about when it comes to sensuality, right? People have always had this idea that, you know, sensuality equals sex. Like, that's not the case. And it's the same thing with kink. Like, kink does not always equal. Not to say you can't enjoy it as it's happening, but it's not the prerequisite for it.
Yeah, and of course there are always bad apples, but overwhelmingly it's the people on the outside that are over sexualizing it out of their own ignorance or whatever the case might be. But it's like, you're over sexualizing us who are in kink, and you have no idea that ain't no sex going on. But you can't imagine, because of your own programming, that we could be doing all these things and that sex is not even in the game plan. Not even not the goal, not a step in, you know, whatever. Like, it's not about sex at all. It's about something completely different. For some, it might just be about surrendering, and that is where they're receiving their pleasure. For someone else, it might be just being a dom and being in control, and the trust that that person has to give you in order to engage in those things.
Well, there's so many fundamental things that happen: communication, boundaries, trust. I mean, these are almost things that you hope that you have in your regular day-to-day relationship.
And so many people don't. Which brings me back to your question, like, about, like, well, how do you tell your partner? And they also had a really good article about that. And they, you know, the first thing they said was, don't just drop the bomb and be like, guess what, I'm kinky. Get over it. This is what it is. Get with it or get out. Like,
this is about to go down.
You know, that is not the proper way to introduce the fact that you may want to engage in some kink with them. There are people who are married who don't do kink with their partner.
That's another thing too. That's a whole nother dynamic. Because, you know, like,
the idea that we get to create the relationships that we want, as long as everyone is consenting and there's a mutual understanding, mutual benefit, and we're having open communication, is so empowering.
Yeah.
Well, so you start with that. You don't drop the bomb.
No, darn. I can't.
And then you have a conversation like this, where you ask them what they know about kink, about BDSM. What are their thoughts on it? You know, again, don't make it seem like this is an all or nothing conversation, and it all doesn't have to be talked about right now. But let it be an ongoing conversation and an exploration for both of you, even though you might be the one coming into this more on the side of, I know this is what I want. But then they say, you know, don't invalidate yourself and what you want, but also don't just make it about you.
I can see that. Because on some level, you're trying to be in tune with what you want, what you like, and so forth, and thinking like, okay, I'm going to bring this to the table, but then, like, not forgetting that my partner has their own say in this because they're participating in this venture as well, right? So I can't ostracise them out just because I made it about me.
And I think a good place would be to talk about the tenets of negotiation and consent and boundaries before you even start talking about, so I want to ball gag you and flog you. How do you feel about that? You know,
I got this paddle that's like this long.
And, you know, I mean, I don't know why I didn't think about this, but like in some states, it's probably going to be a little harder to find community, because engaging in these things could also be legal in those states.
Yeah.
But it's very, you know, it very much is something like you just kind of got to know. I know I'm not affiliated with them, so this is not a sponsored thing, but I know one place that if anyone is interested in finding, because they do have educational events where you can go by yourself with partners to learn more about these things without necessarily having to engage in them. You can go to fetlife.com and find munches is what they're called, and other kinds of events. I know there's an organization that does events here in Baltimore, and they're doing one soon about the use of safe words. And so
there's one in Philly too that they're all about like kink, BDSM, education, you know, like it's actually a really beautiful community that they're building. Um and I have to say that when it's it's one of those things where you would think it would be very like not the worst, not secretive, but like this is just us, right? This is just our thing, and you know, and it's not even like that. Not
Mm-hmm.
not at all. Like they're very open. You got questions, you know, and you come as you are. And I think that's a really big part about sensuality. You know, sensuality, sexuality is like this notion of like come as you are, right? Like if you're able to come as you are and express yourself and understand what you want and who you are in those moments, you only benefit, right? You only benefit from it. As I'm taking notes.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I think again, this is even if you don't go into the far out realms of kink, the understanding that one, negotiations don't just happen one time. Those are ongoing conversations. And for me, kink encourages the idea of exploration, which is why the negotiations are ongoing, because you might be completely be like, this is absolutely no. You cannot spit on me.
Nope. Can't do it.
And then you're engaging in stuff and you be like,
wow.
maybe that's not.
This turned me up more than I thought it would.
Right. You know, and or it could be reversed, where you could think, you know what, I like having my hair pulled, and then somebody does it, and you're like, I don't like that at all. And you use your say for it, and then you talk about it. It's like, was this a one-time thing, or was it something that you don't want done to you ever? And because we're engaging in these acts, whether sexual or not, with consent and mutuality, and even if you are the submissive, if you have a dominant, they want you to have to enjoy it and have pleasure. And so the trust factor is huge. And making sure, like, of course, with everything, there's always, you can always encounter people who are abusive and you have to be careful. But if you're really learning how to engage in kink in safe ways and how it's supposed to be done, then honestly, I think learning on how to navigate this also helps people in their relationships outside of kink, because we should be having these conversations even outside of sexual discussion, and to negotiate how we want our relationship to be, and to have and know that that's an ongoing conversation, to open up lines of communication, to talk about what we want, what we don't want. How do we engage in these things? What does it look like for, if we're having an argument, and what does aftercare look like? Even in those settings when things get really, really heated. And most of us are not engaging in relationship that way, let alone sex that way, whether it's vanilla or not.
Well, the communication part. So there's been like a few sex stores that I've gone to, and one of the things I always find interesting is these games. They have like these, they have games, card games. I've even seen apps where like basically you and your partner ask each other different questions, right? And it's meant to kind of like slowly start the conversation of what do you like, what do you don't like? Because even I'll admit that as long as I've been with my wife, I know that there are probably things that I still don't know. Like things change. She changes. I change. So I think, and sometimes we think we know what we know, when in reality we don't really know what we know, because we think of one size fits all, and one size does not fit all. In a lot of cases, unless you are with that person and you actually, find out. So like for the person who says, well, I still feel uncomfortable asking those questions. No lie. There are a plethora of apps out there where you can, and it turns into a game, which makes it fun, right? Like you turn this into a fun thing, but still knowing that, I know, right? Still knowing that what I'm going to get out of it is going to still give me information, and hopefully start to begin the process of communicating with my wife, or communicating with my partner, or communicating with whoever about things that I feel is kind of hard to talk about. In reality, the more you do it, I tell you, the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more of the conversation you're having,
Yeah.
it becomes like, oh, well, then you start saying things like, I never tried that. Would you be interested?
And actually, you know what? We're going to go a little bit deeper. We're about to get a little personal. But if you want to get personal with us, then you're going to have to stay tuned for part 2. And so be as radiant as the sun and all the things. And then come back for our final episode of the season.
Yes.
and get to know more about us and our kink.
Yes. Yes.